And supposedly we're live. Here's hoping. Okay, so this is my very first podcast, hopefully the first of many. And my very first guest is Modia Shole, who is a South African film and television composer who founded his own company, Shucks Productions, and is well known for scoring projects like 1802, Love Defies Time, Law, Love and Betrayal, and Kill Boro, and was a SAFTAs nominee for his work on 1802, Love Defies Time. And he also produces library music for various platforms and has worked on television shows such as Homecoming, Itonga, and Kwacholo Mzansi. So, Modia Shole, welcome to the podcast.
Mr. Hugh Davidson, how are you doing?
I'm very good. I'm a little nervous because it's my first podcast. But as we just discussed, we take the nerves as a positive sign that we're moving forward out of our zones of comfort and into better things.
No, thank you so much for having me, by the way.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure.
Yes.
So the first thing, and when I first saw you, I have many questions for you, of course, but I always like to think, well, maybe we should start at the beginning. So, one of my first questions for you is, when did you start becoming interested in music? Like, what were those early triggers that set you on this path?
So it goes back to like when I was still a child. I grew up in a house where there was always music playing in the house. Whether it's my dad's classical music or my mom's Judy Boucher and Elton John and ABBA collections, my sister's R&B, my auntie's gospel music, my hip hop, my uncle's kwaito. There was always music playing around the house, and with that influence, you start becoming a music appreciator, a music lover. First of all, you have to love music. I like that song. I'm a fan of this person. And then once I started liking a song, for example, like a Michael Jackson or an MC Hammer, I would ask myself, okay, why do I like the song? Why do I like that sound? Who made that sound? Those were the very early triggers. And, my dad being a music enthusiast, he can also read and write music. He can't play, or I've never seen him play or perform, but he knows the theory. And there was always an organ in the house or a keyboard in the house, and as kids, we would bang on this thing, trying to emulate Elton John, wondering why we are not doing the same sounds as Elton John. And I think for me, that's what, piqued the interest in music. Like, I have to figure this thing out. Why does Elton John play so well and I can't? So being that there was always an organ in the house, you would always be interested in it. And once my parents saw that interest, they got me one of these little keyboards that they sold like back in the 90s, with nursery rhyme songs, and it actually teaches kids how to play Mary Had a Little Lamb, Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, which was the first song that I learned how to play. So I can say that's where it really started.
Okay, so and it's interesting because I see that you also graduated with a national diploma in electrical engineering, which is like a highly technical subject. I have a friend who's an electrical engineer, and he's like a genius.
What I
find,
does he have a degree or national diploma?
He's got a degree. I forget exactly where it ended. I think it was a master's in the end. But he's now living in Vancouver, like close to Seattle, and is working on AI for Microsoft. He's so he's one of those guys. But what I always find interesting about music is how it's this like crossover between the highly technical and then the emotional at the same time. So obviously, as a person that's done electrical engineering, you've got that kind of mind as well. But then you also crossed over into a kind of emotional place as well.
So
carry on.
Like I was just trying to get into the electrical engineering stuff. Besides being
Yeah.
interested in music, in the 90s, we had these video games, TV game phenomenon going, and I think that piqued my interest into electrical engineering. Like I also want to build, the stuff that I like so I can play TV games, when I'm grown up. And the closest career or the closest course that I could do was electrical engineering. I also went to a technical high school, by the way, where we did other technical subjects.
Ah,
But at a later stage, like at grade 10, then you pick the one that you want to specialize in. And for me, it was always electronics. So there were subjects like fitting and turning, motor mechanics, building construction, welding. So we did all of those grade 8 and grade 9, and then grade 10 you specialize. So naturally, when you go to tertiary or a high institution, that's the one that you go for. So I went for that. And they did lie to us and say engineers make a lot of money. So that's why that's why you had the studied that. But yeah, I
yeah, yeah,
get what
yeah,
you
sure.
say when you say it's very close tied with music, and I don't know how the universe worked, but it just connected me with those two things.
So was it your parents that said we want you to we want you to get the safe job? This often happens with parents I've seen for like with
Yeah,
great artists is that
yeah.
they have they they actually have a qualification in something quite different. Like Brian May from Queen apparently
Is
a
a
qualified aeronautical engineer or
astrophysicist or
something.
something? Yeah, astrophysicist.
Yeah, 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 something like that. Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
So did that come from your parents? Did they say we want you to have a good backup just in case
My
music doesn't
parents
work out?
said my parents believe in education, but I was fortunate where they did not choose a career for you. They asked you at the end of grade 12, what do you want to study? We've planned the money for
Mm.
you. What do you want to study? I want to study electrical engineering. Okay, here's the money for electrical engineering. Bring us back our qualification. So they do not choose. They did not choose my career. They just want you to pick what's best for you and make sure you pass. You get so you have to
Okay,
be careful
well,
also with your choice. Yeah.
yeah, of course, of course. So my next
Mm,
question then is, what was it then that brought you from electrical engineering to composing? Like, at what point were you like, oh, wait a minute, actually,
mm.
composing is going to be the thing for me?
Um. So yeah, here's the story, right? So I'm in grade 11. I'm at a technical high school, and my plan is to go to TUT to be an engineer, get a good job, make some money. But also at that time, being a lover of music, I'm a big fan of hip hop. Also my friends are also big fans of hip hop, and also at that time, my dad had a Nokia 3310 phone, right? So he was on a contract, and then every 2 years they give him a new phone. So after that 2 years, he gave me that 3310. And if you remember, that 3310 had a composer feature as well, right?
I
So
actually don't remember that. I just remember playing Snake on it.
Snake, yeah, Snake and composer. Those are my favorite features. Snake, space, and
Yeah,
the
yeah.
music feature. So also at that time, we all into hip hop. I remember I initially wanted to be a rapper, but I was told I wasn't that good, and yeah, that's why I left it. But also at that time, there was also the whole ringtone phenomenon, where you could buy a ringtone
I
from
remember
a
that.
from a certain company, and like so, me being a big fan of hip hop, most of the songs that I like were not on the list of that service. So they would put songs that were in the top 40, the Kylie Minogues, the Britney Spears, or whoever was top 40 at the time. And my favorite hip hop songs were not there. So I took the initiative of using my dad's
Mm.
organ, correlating it with the Nokia 3310 composer feature, right? And crafting my own ringtones. Yes, of my favorite songs, of me and my friends'
Oh,
favorite songs.
so so now did the electrical engineering aspect like was that like a direct bridge into um composing for the Nokia?
I think it played. I was not aware. If it worked itself out like that, I was not aware. But those were the things that I was interested in. I did not know that they were gonna correlate. So
Okay, so
I
so
you say?
so that organ,
Yes.
like, how did you transfer the sound, or did you record MIDI on that organ and then
No, no, I was
somehow
trying to figure
upload it
out
onto the
the
Nokia?
keys. I was trying to figure out the keys. Okay, so if I press this on the Nokia 3310 is C. Or if I press this one, oh, this is D. Oh, this is E. This is F. So that's what I did with the I didn't play the sound from the organ. I used the sound from
Okay.
the Nokia 3310. And also at the time, that's how I was learning my music theory in a way. I
Uh,
learned which key is
yeah,
C,
yeah,
is D, is E, is F. I knew them as do, re, mi, fa, so. So
yeah, yeah.
it kind of worked itself out like that. And one of my friends heard these ringtones and said, "Hey, dude, you can't rap, but you can really make these ringtones. So that means you can make beats." And I have a cousin who has a music software called Fruity Loops. I really want to connect you with my
Uh,
cousin, and you guys can start making beats together. And for me, it was kind of like a distraction a bit. Like, no, dude, I already tried rapping. I already tried DJing. Maybe this music thing is not for me. It's like, no, I'm gonna get you the software. I'm gonna have you and my cousin meet, and then we'll see where it goes. So I said, okay, I'll try it. If it doesn't work out, then I'll go back to my studies. This is first year, by the way. This is first year tertiary, 2004,
hmm,
electrical engineering. So I meet with his cousin. He gives me the floppy disk. At the time, I remember I was staying with my sister. My sister was studying IT, right? So naturally, she has
hmm,
a PC. So I installed it on my sister's
yeah.
PC, and I was hooked. I was hooked with the software, with
Yeah.
the fact that I can place a kick here and a snare there, and it plays back. And it
Mm.
was sort of like, this is what I sound like. This is my reflection. And it all happened, at the same time. My first year of electrical engineering was my first year of, you know, being a composer. So I
Interesting.
would say, I would
I
say,
actually remember.
yeah, sorry.
I remember. I remember a similar experience the first time I encountered Fruity Loops as well, which
Mm,
was also the first DAW I ever worked on as well was
wow.
Fruity Loops, and with that little grid, that little 16 grid, and you put
Yes.
the kick there and the snare there, and you can add a
And
little
it
bit of
plays back.
delay or reverb. And I was like, whoa! It was between that and Cakewalk. But Cakewalk was like cheesy MIDI, and like Fruity Loops had these like quite cool sounds. And I was
Yes,
like,
yes, yes.
whoa, like I sound like it's like a real beat. I just made a real beat.
Yes. Sounds like what I
It
hear on
was
the
quite
radio.
amazing. Yeah, 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 yeah. Um, okay, yeah. So my next question to you then is, were you doing hip hop beats?
Yes. When I started, it was just plain hip hop because, I want to sound like Dr. Dre or the Neptune or Timberland or whoever I was looking up to at the time. So, yes, at first it was that boom bap hip hop that I was trying to make.
Yeah, yeah, and that was I remember at that. So this is like early 2000s, I'm guessing, hey?
Yes. Yes. 2004, that's when I did
Um,
my first year. Yes.
okay, yeah, yeah, and that was like the Neptunes were huge. Timberland was
Oh,
huge at that
oh,
point.
my word. Yes.
They were like, yeah, and Timberland had that whole weird sound. He was always like putting his own voice into it. He was like,
Yes, he would do his own scratches and add dog sounds that sound amazing, and you don't know how he really
yeah,
did it with, especially with the equipment at that time. I really wonder how he did it with all that equipment that he was using. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think obviously he probably had a whole team behind him, like also helping him out with all of that stuff.
Mm, mm.
Um, so what was so you spoke about Michael Jackson, you spoke about MC Hammer. I remember those very well as well. Like Can't Touch This is still on my Spotify playlist. Although those pants, I'm not too sure about these days.
Oh, that haircut! Oh, that
But
haircut!
oh,
Yeah.
that haircut. Yeah, yeah. Um, Okay, so this was 2004, around about 2004. So take me then through the journey that from 2004 making beats, you were making beats for yourself, maybe for your friends. How did it cross then into um the professional realm?
Okay, so once again, like the electrical side and the musical side are gonna go in parallels as I tell the story. So I'm in first year. I have my studies, and I have now a new hobby, which is music, right? So when I wasn't studying, I was I was making music. I was trying to get this thing right because, like, I want to emulate, the Timberlands and the Dr. Dre's. Like I told you, it goes from curiosity to I like that sound to how do I make that sound. Now that I have the software, I can try and navigate how I can do that. 2004 to 2008, up until I graduated, it was just a hobby. My plan was to graduate and get a job. All these years, I'm still making beats and I'm still going through my studies. And when you complete your electrical engineering course, once you finish with all your theory subjects, you have to do a year of practical training. So either you find a company that can take you as an apprentice, or you can do the course at the institution. So what you want to do is get a company that can pay you, because if you do the course at school, you're gonna pay, right? And if you get a company that pays you after a year, they might take you on now as a full-time employee. So fortunately, I got a company in Silverton where I worked as a junior RF technician. And I think at that time, I was really trying to complete my studies. So I kind of left the beat making to the side and tried to complete my studies. And when I did eventually graduate in 2008 to 2010, end of 2010, I was not making much music because now I have a 95. I'm trying to be a responsible citizen. And I was, yes, at first, playing beats for my friends. And, they liked them for some reason. And they would tell their friends, and their friends would tell their friends, to a point where every time I was introduced, it's, yeah, yeah, this Modia, this is a guy that makes beats. You get. So I saw
Mm.
that, I'm earning a reputation. If I'm not earning much reputation, the only reputation I have is music. So I'm
Mm.
working, I'm doing my 9 to 5. I'm making beats here and there whenever I get free time. And then at the end of 2010, I went through something with one of my colleagues there at work. This is before the word toxic work environment was a buzzword, but there was somebody who was really toxic towards me, to a point where I opted to resign and go look for another job. And at the time, it was not a very wise decision, because that's when the unemployment thing in South Africa started, rising and rising. It was not easy to get jobs, but I had had enough of that place. It started out well, and then it ended up, not so good. And end of 2010, I resigned. Beginning of 2011, I'm looking for a job. I'm sending CVs after CVs because I figure I'm a graduate. I have 3 years experience, right? Which company is going to say no to me? It was a lot of companies said no to me, by the way. Interview after interview, um, sending my CVs, and I'm not succeeding. I'm like, it's we regret to inform, and all of this. And my savings are also running out because I also moved back home. So when savings run out and options are getting less and less, you start stressing, okay, like, okay, but you start asking yourself the question, what else, am I good at? Because also at the time, you would see people with like slashes in their whole career introductions. I'm a DJ slash actor slash presenter slash this. And it's like, okay, Mudia, but what is your slash? What else are you good at? And the only answer was music. You used to make beats, remember? You used to make beats for your friends, and you're not getting a job at the current moment. So with some of the savings that I had, I bought myself a new laptop. Oh, by the way, the laptop that I had when I was working got stolen. There was a break-in. My PC was stolen, so I had to start from scratch. Most of my beats that I didn't back up were stolen with that PC. So I bought myself a
Oh,
new
it's the
laptop.
worst. It's the
It's the
worst.
worst, the absolute worst. So I bought myself a laptop and I got myself a Fruit Loop software. And at the time also I was also listening to like a lot of sampled hip hop, the Jay Dillas, the Kanye Wests, the DJ Premiers, which also teaches you about music because they're sampling from old soul records, from old rock records. Now you just
Yeah.
broadening your horizon in terms of music. And I remember after I bought that PC and installed Fruity Loops, I wanted to start sampling because I had been using Fruity Loop stock sounds the whole time to make music. So
Yes.
now I really want to see what this sampling thing is all about. 2011, I remember it was I think it was November, my savings are really low and I really have no options. I'm like, I have nothing to lose but to chase, this music dream. And as cruel as unemployment can be, making music really gave me life, really revived me because these we regret to inform emails and letters were really depressing at the time, Hugh. So it really gave me life. It really made
I
me
know.
feel like I'm productive again. So I said, I think this thing is giving me, a new light. There's no other option but to pursue it because even when I was at work, sometimes I would wonder, what would have happened if I went the music route? And it was like, okay, I think now maybe it's time to find out. Maybe it's time you go fully into trying to make music and putting it out there, and not just playing it for your friends.
Okay. So, this is what time was this? Sort of 2014.
This is end of 2011 when I made the decision. I think it was
Oh,
November,
2011.
September
Okay.
around there. Yes.
All right. Okay. 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 So you've made this decision now, and it's a super difficult decision. And I know that story of the "we regret to inform you," and because it's tough even in the music industry, you gotta get
Yes.
out and hustle, and you're as a musician, and I think that resilience is still like that's like a really important, I think,
Thing,
message for
yeah.
anybody, no matter what career you're in, is this idea that you can't give up. You got to keep moving
Yes.
forward and having faith that you're gonna figure it out. Even though it's difficult, because sometimes you come like close to the bone, where it's like
Yes. And you put your all, you
you
make,
got like
you put your all.
and you
Sometimes
got
you
you
would
got
borrow
yeah
money to go to an interview. Sometimes
yeah
you borrow petrol money and the car to go to an interview and the shirt sometimes,
yeah
and
yeah
you try and give it your all. You put out your best questions, you put out your best answers, and it just comes back as well. We regret to inform we found a better candidate. Um and. So yeah. I
yeah
think
yeah
yeah,
yeah
that's when I made that decision, yeah.
yeah. So now you made the decision, and then how did you move forward with that decision?
So in 2011, this was, I think, the rise of Twitter and Facebook, the social media phase,
Mm,
where you could put out your music
yeah.
on these platforms and promote it. And I
Mm,
also, besides making the decision to make music, I was like, okay, I've played these beats for my friends. They might like them because they know me, or maybe they're trying to protect my feelings. Let me make music and put it out to strangers and see what they really think
yeah.
about my music, if I should continue and stuff like that. And I would put my beats on this platform. There was a platform called Data File Host where you could upload a song and share it on your post, and whoever comments, and if they like it or they think it's average or you need to work on this, um, that sort of thing. And I like that interaction. I really like to hear what people um, think about my music. You don't want to be told, yes, your beat is good, but like, give me criticism. Let me have something to work with because I'm really trying to perfect this thing. And also at that time,
Yeah.
there were some American artists that would maybe put their email on this platform. Hey, producers, please send me some beats. Rappers, please send me a demo. DJs, please send me maybe a one of your sets. And but that started the whole, networking thing. That's what I found out that
Yeah.
In the music, you have to make your stuff, and then you have to network. You have to find a way to get it out there because they're not gonna knock on your door and say, "Hey, man, do you have some beats lying around?" And also at the time, um, because now I made this decision, I have to find out, what would really make the music thing work. And from the maybe the interviews that I would see on YouTube or the articles that I would read, one thing would stand out. You have to learn the music business. The music business is the 90% and the talent is 10%. So I heard about that's what they said. That's what they said. So I
That's
heard
true.
about
It's true. We know.
exactly that's what it is. So I started hearing about these network conferences, especially the Samro Mushito conference.
Mm,
This is where
yeah.
sometimes you might meet your favorite producer at a restaurant, and that's not really the time to approach them and give them your CD. What you do is you go to the Moshito conference where they are there to see people and interact with people who they might want to collaborate with, or maybe they can introduce you to people. And I also fell in love with the whole networking thing where you can see your favorite Kwaito artist. There he is right there. He's giving a talk and there's a Q&A session. You can go to the Q&A session or talk with him offline and say, here's my piece. So I really also fell in love with I think maybe there's a plan to really get this out, and not just with one platform, not just with social media. Go to these network conferences, have your friends repost what you're posting, have your friends really spread the word about you and making music. And also also these artists, if I can go to their shows, maybe talk to their manager, if I can slip them some beats. If I also started sending inboxes in their Facebook, telling them about my music. Hey, my name is Modia, I'm a beat maker from Pretoria. I would like to send you some beats. If you like them, let's work. If not, it's still cool. That was the general message that would send to these artists. And
So my
I also,
question,
yeah,
so my question to you at this point is, what I'm hearing is that you are like out there hustling like pretty hard.
yes, yes.
Um, uh, were you also coming up with a little bit of like we regret to inform you that this isn't the kind of music that we are interested in at the moment, or did you find it like very easy to get in there?
Um, so with music, they don't even send you "we regret you" for. They just keep quiet. They just let you
That's
assume
true.
that.
Yeah, yeah.
So you start developing this tough skin. So once again, like I said, my music and my electrical engineering thing was really in parallel. I also learned how to hustle when I was looking for a job in electrical engineering. I had to call all these companies one by one by one by one until I got an interview, and fortunately I got that interview and got a job. So I realized I have to do the same thing with music as well. So with these regret to inform things, sometimes they would tell you, if you do not hear from us within 2 weeks, consider your application
Yeah.
unsuccessful. So I would put that also in the music. If I send you a message and like everybody's on their phone, there's no such thing that you didn't see the message. You saw it and didn't think anything of it. So if 2 weeks pass by and you don't say anything, I assume that you did not like what you heard or you were not interested at all. You get so, and I
Yeah,
learned
yeah,
once I get to that, I move on. I try and find somebody else.
and
So yeah,
and like what I always found is like because like I'm I must say from my side I've also found the networking thing to be like such an important aspect. I'm probably I can't say that I fell in love with it, unfortunately. I'm like a little bit more of a shy person, but it's
yeah,
been like that has always been the game changer. And just for anybody
yeah,
out there that ends up watching this who wants to make music or really like any of their career choices, whether it's electrical engineering or whatever it is that you love, that networking thing and that hustling thing is like so important
so
to
important.
to keep trying and to keep the faith that you're going to make it, even if you've got to have like a little side hustle on the side to make the money to um to somehow like find a way to keep moving forward and keep staying positive, but at the same time to keep doing something proactive about it every day.
So, like with that, especially it would I like, watching interviews of some of my favorite people, the Neptunes, the Dr. Dre's, the Quincy Jones, and they also have stories of how they also struggled in the beginning, but also eventually made it. So some of these things, the positive endings of these stories was something that I also kept in my heart or in my mind. Every time it didn't work out, like, okay, I think if I just keep going, I don't know how long it's gonna take, but eventually, if I just keep pushing and pushing and pushing, something will happen. And in between the regret to informs, you would put out your beat on Twitter or Facebook, and you tag an artist, and they might like it. Something that just
Mm,
gives you, just a bit of hope. Some
yeah.
artists would not respond, but they would say, "Hey, I like that beat." They would not say, yes,
Mm,
let's use it for my album, but they'll say, I like that. Or somebody that you don't know, they introduce you, hey, this is Modia, the guy that makes beats, and this guy that you don't know, here's your beat for the first time, and he likes it. Things like that would just keep you going. That okay, I'm not crazy. I think some people do like my beats, and some people might not want to use them. So within the hustle, yes, you are gonna fall, you are gonna stand up, you are gonna get positives, and you are gonna get negatives. So I think that's the whole thing that's gonna keep composers going. That really should keep composers going. And yeah.
so my next question then is, when was the first time? What was the first time that you got paid for a job? Or let's not say for a job, but what was the first time you got paid for making music?
Formally, I'll say the informal payment and the formal payment.
Okay,
So
yeah, yeah. I think
um
informal also counts.
yeah, I remember selling my beats for like $100. Yeah, I think I sold them for
Okay,
$100 for a rapper who was also just trying to get on the mixtape circuit, and they needed a beat, and yeah, I just sold it to them,
yeah.
for $100, and said, yeah, I think this is let me just sell it. What am I gonna do with this beat in my hard drive? Let me make money from it. Let me just give it to him, and he'll figure out where he'll take it. But um with that, you have to work your way up to getting paid. Sometimes you might have to give your beats away, for royalties, or just for the fact that you made this beat for
Mm,
this certain person
yeah.
who will also blast it across his fans or his fan base, so that people know you. So I got onto this mixtape. These guys from the Valdi, their names was Fred Pack. So they like two of my beats. Yeah, one of my beats, and they happened to shoot a music video for it. This was in I think it was 2014. So I did not get paid for it, but what they did is they put their music video out on YouTube, and I could take that video and use it as promotion for me. So that in a way
Yes.
is a bit of payment. They also got nominated
Mm,
at the South African Hip Hop Awards for that mixtape. That's something that I could use that.
okay.
Hey, one of those albums that's in the nominee list, I was on that album. Something that you could use as promotion. It might not be physical cash, yes, but it's something that you can use that's of value, that can add to your value. So yeah, sorry.
So it's quite interesting that, because you hear a lot of musicians complaining about people talking about, oh, you'll do it, we can't pay you any money, but you can, if you do
Pay
the
you in
work,
exposure.
for exposure.
Mm,
We'll pay you an exposure. And like I've felt, I know in the past, I've felt a lot of frustration with that before. I was in bands previously, and it was, the people would expect you to do gigs for free for exposure and that kind of thing. And you'd just be like, come on, get real, man. We gotta pay petrol. We gotta like
Yes,
we're
yes.
all of that. But it is also interesting how that is like it's a very difficult place to be to um to 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 not have the ability to make money or to charge money for your work because those people don't have any money necessarily to pay you either. And there is something in that thing of exposure as well. Like I think there is something in that, like doing work for exposure. I'm not saying it's right, and I understand that artists get
Mm.
frustrated, and hopefully there'll be some people in the comments shaking their fists at me. But I think there is something in doing work for exposure as well.
So with after the informal payments, I also got the whole exposure thing, but it was more for royalties now. You might not buy the beat from me physically. Yes, put me on the Samro list as a composer,
Mm,
50%, 50%. And sometimes that's what you have to do. Even if the song goes and blows up on the radio, you did not get paid, but at least you got, these royalties. So that's the frustrating thing because especially if it's maybe one of your first few opportunities, you really don't have enough bargaining, muscle to say,
mm,
well, I want
yeah,
5,000 for this beat. They'll say, okay, I know somebody cheaper. Do you want this opportunity or not?
yeah,
And sometimes as your first
yeah.
opportunity, like this might be my foot in. And we always told that just get your foot in, just make sure you get it, and then you'll negotiate the higher fees
Mm,
with other projects
mm,
that you might work on. It's not right. I think if you're gonna take a young talent, don't just offer him exposure. At least introduce him to your network. If you're not gonna pay him, at least
yes,
put his stuff out there. At
yeah,
least make sure that he has taxi money or petrol money or whatever he needs to do, to get to the studio. At least make sure that they register on Samro, on Capasso, so that they can earn their royalties. Some
yeah,
of
yeah,
these artists don't realize that once you heard that little artist, that young artist that you think is green and doesn't know much, he might, blow up to be something and might be somebody that you might need, in the future. So
yeah,
it
yeah, yeah.
always works both ways. And when you've been robbed as a composer or as an artist, some of us never wanna make somebody feel like that. So
Mm,
I always made sure that, okay, what other value can I get besides physical cash or a bank transfer? Okay, make sure that you put my name in the credits. Make sure you have something that I can take to promote on social media. Make sure you tell your friends about me. So I think with the song that I did for Casper Nyovest in 2016, it also did not end well with the remuneration and stuff. So we ended up with the royalty split because we also so what I did, I sampled a Mahotela Queen song for and well, that ended up
okay.
going to Casper's album. So all of those writers, all of Casper's writers and me had to split, that 100%. But at least it was something now that I can use because he also used that song as a single. It was performed, all over the country. It was performed with Brahim Masekela at some show. Um, it was also performed with Chris Martin of Coldplay at the Global Citizen Festival. And that's something that also gave me inspiration. Like, okay, I did not get physical remuneration for this idea, but at least my idea is on radio now. That's something that also gives you hope to keep
Yeah,
going. That brings value to you. Now
yeah,
your
yeah.
name
And
is to a song like that. So yeah.
so I've been following this guy called Alex Hormozy. I don't know if you know him at all.
No,
He's
no, no.
he's actually he's like a huge entrepreneur in the US.
Mhm.
And he also but he made his money in gyms, like in starting up gyms. So he's like this big muscle man, but he's also like super smart as well, and he's a super
Mm,
smart businessman. And his business model is very much this idea that what you do is in the beginning you give your work away for free, but you negotiate that you can get recommendations. Like, I'll give it to you for free in exchange for recommendations, and like and so that you can like learn how the business works, and like iterate and get better and better. And then at a certain point you're like, okay, now no more free, now I'm starting to charge. And that's and it seems to be like a business model that is also like a big business model, like across the new tech thing that's been going on since like Facebook. Like,
mm,
as I say, like Facebook gives away its service for free, or really like many businesses uh across the internet give away their services. They've always got like their opening tier, which is like the free tier, like YouTube or whatever. And then like you eventually, it's like that whole sales funnel thing where like they eventually like funnel you into being a paid subscriber or whatever.
yes.
So yeah, I mean, but I think it is like a very tricky line to walk, and it's very difficult for new artists to um it's like a tough pill to swallow, that
Yes, yes.
maybe you're not going to earn really actually what you're worth. I just want to, but anyway, I think what's important there is to remember that even if you're not earning money, you can still negotiate your value in other ways by getting recommendations or getting the people to shout you out on social media or whatever the case is. Um, so that's very interesting about sampling Mahotella Queens. So the story behind that is you sampled Mahotella Queens for a Castor Nuove song, and you ended up, or really Casper and the whole team ended up having to pay Mahotella Queens like quite a big chunk of that. Is that the
Yes,
case?
so what they did is I made a sample of the master recording of the Martella Queen song. And what they did is they
Yes.
remixed my song to maybe sound more trappy and poppy, with the drums that were popular at the time, but it was still the same song. So what happened was
Yes.
interpolation. I think it was interpolation, right? And also they get featured on the song. So I think they worked it out
Mm.
like that. Yes.
So that process, was it just you that said, I've got this sample, I'm gonna make it work? You've been listening to Kanye West, you're like, Kanye's making the samples and they're really working.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do this in the South African way.
Yes, that's
So
exactly
you
what it was.
made so you're gonna make so you decided, I'm gonna make the beat, I'm gonna sample my Hotella Queens, and then did you pitch that to Casper, or or was it the case that Casper said, I want you to make a beat for me?
No, I was sampling, right? I was sampling from American and soul artists, and
Okay.
after a while it started getting boring. Like, okay, this sample, probably 100 other producers in the US have found this sample and have used it. I'm looking for a sample that's like, that's a rare diamond that's never been found before. I was looking for a sample like
Yeah.
that. That was the concept in mind way before I even found the sample, right? So I was like, what if I find, a South African sample that maybe was not a big hit in the 80s, that's somewhere there, maybe at track 12 or whatever, just a red that someone hasn't sampled or touched before. So I was always looking for a song like that. And when I heard that song, and it was very easy to sample. The drumming was very light, so I could add my own drums and have fun with it. And when I found that sample, I sent it to firstly. I was also shopping that beat, by the way. I sent it to Kabelo Mabalani of TKZ.
Mm,
He was going to use it
mm.
on his album, but then his album changed direction where my songs were not gonna fit in his album. So he said, I like your work, I like what you're doing. So what I'll do is I'll give you a publishing deal, exclusive songwriter publishing deal with my company, Faith Publishing. So his company was administered by Sheer, and Casper at the time was also under Sheer. And what the client liaisons at Sheer like to do is pair, producers with artists, right? But I had met Casper before that, so it kind of also worked out the fact that we were under the same publishing company and that I had sent him beats before. So I was really shopping it out
Okay,
because
so
I really
then,
believe. So it could have
yeah,
been
yeah, yeah,
anybody
and
else.
I mean, I find that like so interesting because I also remember round about. Actually, it was probably earlier than that. It was probably around about sort of early 2000s when Bongani, Fassi, and some other guys. I think it was that
Vusiqimba,
band called Josie.
Yeah, Josie sampled Vusiqimba, the Maskandi artist.
Yeah, 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 and it was amazing. I was like,
It was
what?
yes. That was
Yes,
that was
this.
also one of the inspirations for that song. There was also a song that DJ Black Coffee sampled. I think it was one of his first albums. He sampled Victor Antoni, who's
Mm,
another great South African jazz artist. And I remember hearing
yeah, yeah,
those two songs and thinking, I have to find, that rare diamond, another red diamond, instead
yeah,
of the Brenda Fassie weekend specials or the songs that were really popular in the 80s. I mean, that's very obvious. That's
yeah,
that's you're gonna use a sample to like attach people's memories to it, and that's how maybe you might make the song a big hit. But I want a song that nobody knows and make it recognized.
yeah,
That was the concept in mind with that song, with the Malume song.
yeah, yeah. And what's so interesting is how then it's not like because as much as soul music is like awesome, it's a very like American style. Whereas now when you're like mining South African styles, then what's happening is there's like this sort of authentic South African hip hop starts emerging.
Yes, yes, yes. So that was the time
Yeah,
when sorry, that was the time when the hip hop was really, South African hip hop was really blowing up. Everybody was sampling from Kwaito, from whoever was popular in the 90s. So I wanted to make my sound stand out by sampling something they haven't heard. So they were sampling mostly from hits
yeah,
from the 90s and 80s and,
yeah,
and wherever.
yeah, yeah,
I wanted a red diamond. I wanted a red diamond, and
yeah, yeah.
fortunately I found.
And yeah, and Mahotela Queens have that like real kind of like
Yes,
traditional sound about them as well. That
yes.
that is like you cannot mistake this for like an American
Anywhere else.
style or whatever. This is like a deeply, deeply South African sound that is now being modernized and brought into the modern era, which is yeah. Like I think I actually think it's still underutilized to this day. I think artists should be doing more of that.
Yes. And some of them are doing it. They might not be in the mainstream. Some of them are. Some of them are really pushing that whole traditional sound.
Okay, can you name any names there?
Um, there's Luyolo Lenga, who I've worked with. He does Xhosa indigenous instruments. The Mkhube, the
Yes.
Uhadi, he plays that. There's
Yeah,
another
yeah, yeah.
friend of mine, Sandile Masilela. He plays Maskandi guitar. He plays Malombo type
Mm,
jazz guitar. There's one of my former classmates, Bilani Bubu. They have this whole, uh, indigenous instruments and chants and all these vocals and all. Everything's just always African. They might not be in the mainstream,
yeah.
but they have their little concerts in whatever the communities. Even in Pretoria, there's
Oh,
a
yeah, yeah, yeah.
whole jazz
Yeah.
community, the whole jazz community, and you see like young guys in their 20s, they have a whole band and they're just playing amazing stuff. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
there are people like that, yeah.
I mean, I see what you mean coming from that, from modern people like digging back into their cultural roots. I guess what I'm talking about is really more specifically what you did, which was sampling older musicians, like from the 80s or 70s or
Right.
60s, which
Mm.
I think is still underutilized to this day, like
Yes.
especially in South African music. I think there could be like more sampling coming out from like those old classics. I mean,
Mm.
I know
Mm.
obviously there was that resampling of Miriam Makeba's
Pata pata.
uh, what Pata Pata, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
And that obviously did really well for obvious reasons. But I think it
Mm.
can go deeper than that and like really get some of those like old, you know, Puze Kemisi or something like that, where like you
Yes.
could like really
Yes.
like dig
Yes.
into some proper styles and like sample those guys. Um, okay, so we get to the point where you're now like a successful beat maker. You've now worked with Casper, who at that time was probably like the biggest hip hop artist in South Africa.
And
He
I'm a
was part of
success.
the Motswako scene, right?
Yes, yes, he was. Yeah, that whole camp, they embrace each other and they look out for each other. They give each other opportunities. Yeah, just a whole community and a whole sound,
So do
more
you
important.
yeah. So do you have any connections to that part of the world at all? Or I know because I know there's something like Pretoria. Obviously, you both Tswana.
Yes,
Like your mother tongue is Tswana, my guess is.
yes, yes, yes.
So
Yes,
was
my
that
mother
the
tongue.
only connection, or did you also?
Nah,
Sorry.
that was the only connection. I was not connected into I was just a fan of them. I just happened to
Okay.
find, one of them. But yeah, I did not have any connections to that whole camp.
Okay. Okay. Because like obviously Mafeking at some point it was just like
Yes,
this
with double
hotbed of
HP.
like talent
Mm,
coming out of there. Just double HP and you know like various others, and then obviously
mm,
Casper as well. Um. Okay. So you're now you've had this very successful song that you produced
mhm.
that maybe you felt like you should probably have been paid for, but like you didn't get as much money as you were probably deserved. But at least you had this like really successful song that you could then like say, okay, I like this, like I am worth money now. So
Yes.
what was the next step from there?
So yes, now that I'm a successful one-hit wonder, um, I'm still under I'm still under that Share Publishing umbrella, right? And what
Okay, yeah.
happened with Share is that, or with these publishers, maybe this is something that I found is that once you have something like that, they start trusting you. They say, okay, I think maybe you might
Mm,
be a little bit of a big boy. Let's throw, some
okay.
really nice opportunities at you while you still have this buzz going. So that was the pivot between me going from a beat maker to film scoring. So what happened next is that
Okay.
they sent me a TVC brief for the
Mm.
Kruger National Park. The Kruger National Park needs a song, a 30-second song for one of their shows. Here are the references. The project fee is 40,000. The deadline is in 3 days, and we'll let you know if you've made it in 7 days time. And I didn't know what that format of making music blew my mind. I'm like, what is this? Has this been existing the whole time? Is this how people get paid? And I really like the format of it because with artists, you send them your songs and you
30
have to wait
seconds.
30-second song for 40,000 in 2016. That's someone's salary. That's someone's salary. Somebody who's
Yeah.
living
Yeah, yeah.
decently. So I didn't get the brief, by the way, but they sent it to me and I submitted. That was the next step
Yeah.
where I saw,
Okay.
okay, with artists you have to send them the beats and you have to wait, and then maybe if they consider you, then you visit them in the studio and then they record, and then you have to wait to see if they've selected your song for the album. They might take your song off the album the day before the release, and that's it. That's the game. You just have to be comfortable with that. And even if you are on the album, you still have to wait a year and a half to get your royalties from Samro. Whereas now this thing
Yeah.
tells me that you can get this much for making this song of 30 seconds, and we'll let you know in 7 days. I'm like, okay. I think this is our new pattern. I think I have to find out what this whole part, this TVC brief is all about. And that's when I started venturing now, trying to venture into film scoring and trying to find out what it was. So now it's like I'm ground zero again, but with film scoring. Remember when I started music, when I started, being interested in music, it was like, what is the sound? Who plays the sound? How do I make the sound? So I had to do the same for film scoring. I had to start watching my favorite movies, but this time, like really listening to the scoring. For me, like my film scoring North Star is The Lion King, the 1995 version. Rewatching
Yes.
that movie, that's
Yeah,
when
yeah.
you saw how Hans Zimmer made all those scenes correlate with the music. And it really blew my mind away because like with music you make a beat, the artist has to sing or rap within the beat, and then you have a song. But now with visuals, that was one of my questions. How does he put the music? Do the visuals comes first? Does he make the music and the director how does it work? So that was one of the interesting things that I found about film scoring, and especially finding out that it's going to be beneficial for me as a composer. How do I now get into this thing? That was the next step.
So that's like obviously okay, you say you got the brief for Kruger National. Nice money. You submitted, but you didn't actually get that brief. So
No, I didn't
that
get
was
that one.
a we regret to inform you moment. So that was a
Uh,
we regret to
there was a
inform you
bit of
moment.
there was a bit
But
of hope. They did shortlist one of my options, so that also gave me hope. But I
okay.
didn't. Eventually, I didn't get it. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is also like because that's always like the other thing that I keep having to remember is like when you're moving forward, the like whenever you're progressing, like it's like failure all the way.
Yes.
Like there's always like every time you're failing, it means that you're actually moving forward. It
They're
doesn't
actually moving
mean
closer. Mm.
that you yeah. Like if you're not failing, then you're not moving forward. Is I mean I know that's a cliche, but it's something that I have to keep reminding myself as well whenever I get depressed about things.
Somebody actually said like
um,
you have to find a way to fail faster. Just keep failing quickly so that you
yes,
get to the successful part.
yeah. So that's interesting. Actually, you talk about the Lion King because a friend of mine who his name is Musa Zwane, who he's in well he was in a punk band from Soweto, and I'm a punk rocker. Like I love punk rock for my sins. So when I heard that there was this little punk scene growing up in Soweto, I was like, wow, this is interesting. So I made friends with Musa, and he made friends with me. So it's and he just sent me a photograph that he took. He was at this recording studio in Midrand. I forget what it's called now. So that big recording studio in Midrand,
Mm.
where Lebo M was just coming in, and so Musa was like, "Hey, come get the selfie with me." So it's like it's. I mean, it's also to talk about your composing North Star as being the Lion King. And it's interesting how Hans Zimmer, for example, has this like South African connection as well, who like worked with like Lebo M, and I think Hans Zimmer also he also actually did another movie that was also set in South Africa. I can't remember what it was called, but anyway. So obviously Hans Zimmer is an influence of yours. Could you say
Yes, the godfather of modern film scoring.
the Godfather? Yeah.
Yes, of
Yeah.
modern film scoring,
I
not
think you
film
could
scoring in the
definitely.
whole. Modern film scoring, yeah. I
Yeah.
think I could put him there, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, obviously there are others. There's like that guy Ludwig Gora. Is his
Ludwig
name
Göransson,
Goranson
yeah.
or
There's John Williams.
who?
There's guys from the 50s.
Yeah,
Nad Herman. There's Jerry Goldsmith. There's so many people that I
yeah,
really take influence
right.
from and just sometimes watch and just be fanboys of them.
Yeah. So obviously I would put obviously like John Williams is like the sort of he's the '80s guy. He's the
Yeah.
guy that made like the orchestra. Like that was like the huge orchestra and like that really like technical orchestral writing. And like a real like virtuoso. Like I listen to his scores and I'm just like, I don't, like it's. I guess it's kind of interesting because like I listen to a guy like Hans Zimmer, and like as amazing as he is, I'll listen to a guy like Hans Zimmer and I'll be like, oh yeah, I see what you did there. Like I could probably do that.
Yeah,
Whereas
John Williams is another.
with John Williams, you're like, no, I could not. Like I have no idea what you were doing there, and I could. Or as you're saying, like Bernard Herrmann or Jerry Goldsmith or those guys who had those like real like classical chops,
The
who
60
like
piece
really like
orchestra
they knew
and
the.
all of that. Mm.
Yeah, like it's amazing what those guys did. I mean, obviously that style of composition is now a little bit dated, um, but it's just to like listen and to hear what those guys did and were capable of doing. Like just like notating scores, like they didn't even have to listen; they'd just be like writing it down. It's just incredible. Okay, so we get to the point where you've had your first near success of a TVC, a 30-seconder, which also like is it's like mind blowing. You're like, how do you get paid this much money for 30 seconds?
30 seconds.
But at the same time, when you start to understand how competitive the industry is and how like it's 30 seconds, but first of all, there's a lot that goes into that 30 seconds, but second of all, there are a lot of other people that are hustling for that same 30 seconds because so it's a highly competitive industry as well. Okay, so but you nearly got there. So was the next step a series, or was it a TVC that you won next, or was it a series?
Well, the next step now was having to find the equipment to make more music that would fit TVCs and film scoring and
okay,
all of that. Because remember, I came from that whole sampling thing now. All I have is
and beats,
Fruit Loop stop sounds and samples. And I also discovered what a nightmare sample clearance can be, by the way. So I just really got tired of that. I just had to also start refocusing. So I think also fortunately around that time, once again, like people are introducing me as Modia, the guy that makes beats, And at some point I started getting introduced to other producers and beat makers and people that make music. And I met with this guy, Theo, who introduced me to the whole native instruments, the whole sample library thing, because he was also making music like that. And I don't know, it also fortunately worked around that whole TVC time in my life. I think maybe they introduced him because they said Mudia has made a song for Casper, and I think he had worked with JR and AKA, and they say, hey guys, you guys are from Pretoria, maybe you might form, an alliance of some sorts. And me and him always met all the time and discussed music and sample libraries, and he always preached like, get this sound, and this is how you install the sound, and this is how you get this opportunity. So from 2016 to 2018 is me trying to get money to get those expensive sample libraries, and also still looking for more opportunities. So I think I eventually got that money in 2018. The sample libraries. That's when I installed them on my PC, on a new PC, by the way, because that old sampling one had like started getting cranky and stuff. So I have a new PC now. I have new instruments, but I also have to get used to them. So every day now is an exercise to be familiar with these language of this sample libraries. And then another thing that I also did, I think I got this from a YouTube comment. Somebody, I was also asking or commenting on people's things. How do you get your music on TV? They said, hey, dude, one thing you can do is take clips from like a movie, search maybe your favorite movie and no music. You'll find a clip that doesn't have music and try and put your music under there. And at first, I started with these movie clips, But once again, just like the Mahotela Queens example, I wanted to bring it like more home and more personal. So I would take like soccer highlights of the Soweto Derby and put my beats under it.
Ah.
Um, for real,
Yeah.
I remember the initial idea that sparked this was when Julius Malema was at Winnie Mandela's funeral, and he said something, controversial, and it went viral, and people are reposting this. I'm like, why don't I
Mm.
take these clips and especially these trending topics, these hashtaggy topics, and put my music under it?
Yeah.
I remember the next
Ah.
controversial or viral thing that went crazy was when Kanye West said slavery was had an interview said slavery was a choice. So that's the first clip I took and I put my music under it. Kanye West said slavery is a choice.
Okay.
Original music by Modia, and I would put it on Facebook, Twitter, on WhatsApp, on
Yeah.
LinkedIn, on you get. So every time I would look for Soweto derbies, rugby highlights. Um, every time the president has a station of a nation or anything that has um, a trendy topic, a video that I could use and attach uh, one of my beats on. You get. So I will start forming a show
Yeah.
reel out of these things. Some of these things would garner actual views, and this was also a way for me to get my work out there that okay, now I want to make music for film and TV. Every time under those
Yeah.
captions on Facebook, or I would write original music score by Modia Shole because that's what I
Mm.
was, manifesting. And I would do this like every single day from 2018 um, up until the COVID crisis, right? So what happened during the COVID crisis? I almost had another near job that I always almost got. There was this composer who was working for a popular soapy, but I think at the time he was also gonna work on a new project, right? And so he needed somebody to hold the fort down for this telenovela so he can work on this project. And he had heard of me, right?
Mm.
Um, so he gave me an episode for me to score, and then he said, "Yeah, I think we can work together." And then the very next week, the president announced the whole lockdown thing. Things are going to
Yeah.
be locked down. People are going to have to stay at home. There's the coronavirus. So now this affects also these TV productions. They're going to have to close down. And that ended up with me not getting the that opportunity. But once again,
Mm.
you pick yourself back up. I also found film scoring competitions. These sample libraries would collaborate with a series like Westworld or Bridgerton and have a scoring competition for composers. That's one thing that I also found, especially in the COVID crisis. I think it was the best time for creatives because they're telling us to stay at home and work from home, and we've been doing this.
Mm.
So this was actually
Yeah.
very good for
True.
us.
Yeah.
Most of these networking
Yeah. And in the meantime,
conferences. Sorry?
in the meantime, you also like apart from getting your name out, you're also like working on your chops as well. You're like
Yes, on my
actually
chops as a film score
getting
composer.
better.
Yes, getting much better
Yeah.
and better and better. And people are not shy to let you know if the score is whack or is not all right, or if it's not aligning with the visual. So you get those kind of comments, you're like, let me go back to the lab, let me practice again, let me go watch my favorite movies, let me see how he put that music with that visual. You start learning
Mm.
all of those chops, especially with the film scoring competitions. Um, so what happens there is that you would take that scene and score it and then start a YouTube channel, and then your entry would be uploading that visual on that YouTube channel. And once again, you can take that YouTube
Mm.
channel link and post it and send it to people saying, this is what happens when I score. Maybe if I send it to you, to a TV producer or anybody, we might work together. It's kind of like a marketing or a resume or a reel in a way.
Yeah. So for people who need to find a way to hustle, and by the way, I'm taking notes as well. How did you how did you find the TV producers? Were you like searching for them on LinkedIn?
Every TV show that I would watch, sometimes I wouldn't even watch the episode, just fast forward to the credits. and write their names down, go
Yeah,
search them. If I find their email, or if I find their contacts, sometimes it would be cold calling, sometimes it would be emails upon
yeah.
emails. So I also had to write a little script of how to, introduce myself. Sometimes it would be cold calling. One thing I learned at these networking conferences, they said these people are very busy. They don't have a lot of time. So if you do call, be brief, tell them what you're about, and ask them what is the best way to submit my music to you for consideration. And then they'll take it from there. Some
Yeah.
people will prefer via email. Some people say via WhatsApp. Some people say, where do you stay? Maybe we can meet. And then you move forward
Mm,
from there.
yeah.
So that's one
And
thing. And yeah,
I always find it because I'm also as like a shy person. I was always like, but what happens if they just laugh in my face when I cold call them, or they're rude to me and tell me to go? And then like after a while, I was like, actually, that's not
yes,
professional of them. Like a real
yeah,
professional has to be polite. And they have to,
yes,
they might tell you that they can't take your submission or whatever, but nobody's going to laugh in your face. And like, I guess it's like that similar thing, like when you're a young man and you're trying to find a girlfriend.
yeah.
And, and, like you've got to approach like 10
You have
people for one to say, and
for
you gotta
one
put yourself
near
out there
possible
and you gotta be
opportunity. Yeah.
prepared for rejection.
So yes,
Yeah,
those things would
and
those
it's
things
always
would sorry, I was saying those rejections, those type of reactions that you're talking about, you have to introduce yourself to 20 people, and maybe that one person might consider you. Those are the things that you have to take
yeah,
and then build on. That makes you develop a thick skin. And once again, once you start doing this over and over and over, you start getting better. I was almost a call center agent. When I would call these people, I would just practice maybe before before I do the actual call, just make sure my voice is right, and then go. So you do get better
yeah, yeah,
even with the rejections. Yeah.
yeah. And I think what's also interesting is how even if they reject you, 2 years later you'll see that person again and they'll say, "Oh, I remember you,"
Yes.
and it'll be a whole different opportunity that happens. Okay, so my next bunch of questions, I just want to talk briefly about like your tools. So are you still a Fruity Loops guy or have you moved on from Fruity Loops?
They call it FL Studio now, so that's what I'm calling it.
Sorry,
I'm
FL
still FL
Studio. Yeah,
Studio.
sorry, my
Yeah.
bad, my bad.
I messed around with
Okay, yeah, yeah,
Cubase, but yeah, I'm still FL Studio. Yeah.
okay, yeah. I mean, I haven't used it for like years since like really the beginning, but I hear it's still like an excellent DAW, like a good one to start out on. But it's also like if you're full pro, it's it's still excellent. Like, and obviously, like there are a lot of people still using it. Um, it's interesting though because like most people move on to like what's it, the like Pro Tools is the
Pro
really
Tools and
popular one.
Logic, and yeah.
But I can't figure Pro Tools out at all. Like for some reason I couldn't work that out. I'm a Logic guy because like I interned at where I interned at um the guy was using Logic, so I just became an Apple and Logic guy. But they're actually all apparently they're all pretty much the same thing. Really, they do pretty much the same thing. And all you need to do is get comfortable with the user interface, and then
Yes,
that's it.
yes, yes. Just I think it's up to any to want to pick which one you are better, which one can you work best with and faster with. If you're
Yeah,
comfortable with Logic, then work with Logic. If you're comfortable with Pro Tools, FL Studio, then work, because the film producers don't ask which DAW do you use. They
yeah,
ask, can you turn around this thing within the 3 days?
yeah,
Mm.
exactly. Yeah. Okay, so in terms of okay, so we've looked at DAW software. Then in terms of like plugins, what are your favorite plugins to use?
Obviously the native instrument complete packages,
Mm,
the heavy OCT
okay.
packages. I use a lot
Mm.
of royalty
Those
free
those.
loops.
Sorry, I just want to go back to Heaviosity. Those are for like the hits and the whooshes and the drones
And
and
the
all of that,
guitars
right?
and the yes, everything you pick which sounds you like and which sounds you think will work for you, and yeah, you can assemble a whole you know orchestra of sorts in your workstation.
Okay, carry on. So we've got contact heavy, but actually, contact heaviosity is part of contact, right?
They work together. Native Instruments and
Yeah.
Heavy OCT are different. When it's time to sell products, sometimes you can get them on the Native Instruments portal.
Mm.
Sometimes, yeah.
Okay,
So I also use
so
a lot of
what?
royalty-free loops. Sometimes
Okay.
I incorporate a lot of things. I told myself not to limit my creativity in any way. I don't want to be just okay, now I'm sampling now, or now I'm making original music, or working with MIDI, or now I'm in a band. If I can make a song using native instruments and heavy OCT and another sample library and a royalty-free loop and a sound effect I got from back in the day, if I can use all of those elements to make something that is really nice or that can really move um, the music, I use it. So I've
Mm.
stopped, just
Yeah.
boxing myself into which type of creative I want to be.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's like that's really important, especially these days,
Mm,
because there's so many different angles. There's
yes,
sound engineering, there's sound design, there's
yes.
composition, and they all like come into the same thing in the end.
Mm.
So, do you do you play keyboard like when you're composing? Are you playing it in on keyboard or are you figuring it out using a mouse?
Keyboard. I've One thing I've learned to do is
Okay.
start playing keyboard. I remember I heard this interview with Ziggs Bantwin. I remember, but it was a message that was just being drummed into me that I have to learn how to play, and I have to learn my theory, and I have to learn what a minor chord is, and I have to learn, music, the music language. I might have not gone to a proper, music school, but that does not mean that you shouldn't learn now that, you were an electrical engineer. Just try and educate
Mm,
yourself. He said, okay, good, you can make beats on Fruity Loops, but can you work with Brahima Sekela? What if he says, please
mm.
play this chord? What are you going to do with your Fruity Loops? So it was of the
Yeah.
utmost
Yeah.
importance
Yeah.
to learn your theory. And if maybe a big musician maybe wants to come and work with you or invites you to work with them, at least learn some musical language so you can be on the same um level and not embarrass yourself when you get there. So I had to learn to start playing. I'm pretty decent. I think I'm decent. I'm not as good as
Mm.
I want to be. I don't think anybody's as good as they want to be, but I would not
No,
perform.
of course not.
I would rather do it, behind the scenes and make mistakes and then fix them on the
Mm.
DAW. Mm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that's similar to me. Like my first instrument is guitar, but there came a
Mm.
point where I realized that actually I have to learn the keyboard
You have to learn
because
piano.
first of all yeah, because that's like where that's when you learn to use the keyboard, that's when you learn really about music theory and the relationships between notes in a much more like logical way. But then of course, as well, it's like a MIDI instrument, so you can like play your lines in as opposed to
Yes.
clicking them in, which makes a
Yes.
big difference for the like the musicality. Like
Mm.
you can actually like inject proper musicality into the lines. So there definitely came a point where I was like, I have to learn how to play keyboard at least badly.
And then
And
you
I'm always
get it.
interested to hear that the yeah, yeah. And always I'm always interested to hear that story of Bernard Herrmann, for example, who's known as like one of the goats of Hollywood
Yes.
film scoring, who was apparently like really a bad keyboard player. Actually,
Wow.
he was not good at all, but he was a brilliant composer and orchestrator.
Basically.
So and he had to, he still had to learn the keyboard, and he had to know that language in order to be able to then translate it into onto the score. But I do also know my ex boss. His name is Dan Selsek. He's like one of my mentors, and he always used to say, actually, what his goal is not to be tied down by the keyboard, but just to like hear the notes in your head and then write them down. But I think that skill is reserved for like different people to me. For me, the
You still need
keyboard
to
is a good
sit down
place
and
to
figure
like,
it out. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So another question that I'm quite interested to find out, how often do you use session musicians?
I have started doing it like really. I've started increasing doing that now. Because at first, people don't know you, especially session music. People don't know you. You say, "Hey, man, I make beats. I heard you play the sax. I'd really like to work." And at first they don't trust you, but once you start having these Mahotella Queen songs, and you have work Amazon Prime, then they start trusting you. Now they see your work, and now they can actually believe you when you say that you want to work. So I've used session musicians that I meet through friends or at concerts. I found that before you work, at least have a conversation with them, at least just get to know each other, let them know you, just talk about, sometimes maybe talk about different topics, talk about sports and politics. Just get
Mm,
used to each other before you start collaborating, so that you can have that gelling relationship when it comes to working with the music. So I've worked with keyboardists like Maxwell Baloy. I've worked with Malusi Masia, who plays the sax. And I told you about my friend Sandile Masilela, who's a trumpeter and a
mm,
Maskandi guitarist. We collaborate
mm,
on some of the library music with the genres that I can't necessarily do, like Maskandi. You know, I would
yeah,
add what I add,
yeah.
and then he would bring the guitar lines.
Mm,
But I'm starting to collaborate with more vocalists now. And yeah, the nice
mm,
thing is that we can all do this remotely. If you have something
yeah.
that works, if you have something that I know would work for a certain TV show or for a certain scene, yeah, then I start making that connection or contact, and start talking to you about, which sounds I need, and stuff like that. So I'm really getting into that kind of bag now, where I'm collaborating
Yeah.
uh, with other artists.
And I think also, especially in terms of like, because obviously there's a big push these days to find like authentic African
Yes.
voices and sounds. And you can't get those on like sample libraries and stuff. You have to
Mm.
actually find the guys out there who, like, for example, your friend who plays uhadi or
Yes.
any of those traditional instruments. It's much better to obviously like source those people and find them and work with them, because
And
then
contact,
of course they
and have that initial conversation with them first. Just let
yeah,
them know what you do, and what you're planning, and how it's gonna work, how it's
yeah,
gonna be beneficial for both of you guys.
yeah, exactly. um and also because it's just this vibe thing. I think live musicians always like, as great as sample libraries and all of that are, there's just something about that live thing which brings like the
Yeah.
extra secret sauce that just makes something like really special, I think. um so my next question, I know we're probably running out of time now, but in fact
Yeah,
we
but we
have
can go on.
do you have
Is
a bit more time to chat?
I do. I do. I'm just worried. Are we not gonna run out of time with the
Okay.
with the app?
Yeah, we might, we'll have to see. I think we're on just under 1.5 hours so far, so let's see how far we can go with it.
No problem. No
But
problem.
I'll probably try to edit. I will probably try to edit it down to like an hour or so, because there's probably some fluff that I can cut out. Um. So when you can, if you can take us a little bit through the process of writing, your process of writing music for series, like how does that work? When you meet the directors or the producers reach out to you, who is it? Is it through the directors, or is it a producer that reaches out to you first, or is it through sheer that you get the work? And then what happens in those initial creative conversations, and then how do you take that forward?
So for my first movie, it was a case where I was looking through the credits. I saw a line producer. I contacted him. Um, he did try to get me some briefs, but they didn't work out. But he always kept my name in mind. So he recommended me to another guy, and Aze Uga. So Aze Uga at the time also needed a movie scored in 3 days. So sometimes that's how it works. It's line producer to line producer to director to editor to whosoever. So
Mm,
with Aze, he
yeah.
just give me music. I have a deadline in 3 days. It's an action movie. That was the brief that he gave me. It's an action movie. Just make sure
Yeah.
that you heighten the scenes where they need to be heightened, where it's sad. Just do your thing. And then he gave me another movie, uh, The Ground Beneath Her Feet. I finished the movie in 3 days, and he gave me another movie to finish
Wow.
in 7 days. Yeah. So that one was more a psychological
Wow.
thriller, like one of these three people movie, three characters, the whole movie. You get. So it was a like
Mm,
psychological
yeah.
thriller, so less cinematic drumming, more strings, more effects, more piano, one note piano, things.
Mm,
So that one was, I guess, much easier. But then with these other people, some of them it would be a whole production company that has a line producer or whoever who needs to contact people like me, like the composer and the editors and whosoever. So my first one was with the line producer, um, letting me know the details of the show that they wanted me to be on. It's a dramedy. It's gonna be on Mzansi Magic. Um, you know, uh, it's done by Hella Media, and this is the contract. Are you cool with the contract? Yes, I'm cool with the contract. Okay. From then on, I got to meet the director and the producer. And what I liked with the first meeting with the director producer, this is for, by the way, for the show Lavish, which was on Zanzi Magic, the 13-part dramedy.
okay.
The director
Yeah.
was on his laptop playing the music that he wants. The producer was
Mm,
was had a vision board and a PowerPoint presentation. These are 4 characters. This is the story. This is what happens. So they told me everything. So we're having this three-way conversation. They're also finding out about me. So I think
mm,
once you have that conversation, just like with the session musicians, have a conversation about everything. Ask all the questions that you need to know. Let them ask you, what they need to find out from you. So that's what I
yeah.
like. Every song that the director was playing, I would take notes because I know what I'm going to do is that I'm going to listen to the song and find out who the composers of the song are. And what I would do,
Mm,
um, is not give you a carbon copy, but definitely give you something that is the same feel. Even if I have to use different
yeah.
instruments.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the funny thing about that meeting, I had never done quirky music like that before. I think the five quirky music type songs that I had in my lab in my workstation, you could count them with one hand, and all of them were lucky accidents.
Mm.
So they asked me if I could do the quirky music thing, and at the time I had learned that if they ask you if you can do something, say yes and then figure it out later. You know?
Yeah.
So I remember at the time I was learning scales. I had learned the minor pentatonic, the major pentatonic scales. So I needed to find out what is the scale that they use for quirky music or light-hearted, funny music.
Mm,
And I saw one that
yeah.
called the Hungarian minor scale. I I I swear to you,
Oh.
I Googled it after the meeting in the car. I had to YouTube comedy scale piano, and it came up with the Hungarian. And I saw the keys. I was like, I'm done. I have the formula. I know exactly what I'm going to do. So that was the approach you get. Once you have this whole conversation and you ask questions, and there's no stupid question, there's nobody looking down on each other or undermining each other, and they at the time are interested in you because I had been recommended to them by somebody who they trust, you see. So
Mm.
once we
Yes.
had that, once we had the formula, they asked me to send them 10 tracks according to what they ask. And they said, okay, can you send us 10 tracks by next week, Wednesday? This is a Thursday, by the way, where we
Mm.
where we had the interview. Can you send us these tracks by next week, Wednesday? I
You
think
got
I
a
sent
week.
them. Yes. I worked on them the whole week. By Monday, I sent them, 10 tracks. But then they also, made me wait. Um, so I'm thinking maybe they don't like the songs. So I started making more songs to send to them.
Yeah.
And before I got to send those songs, they called me. They said, "Hey, Mudia, do you have theme song options?" And I was like, "Yeah, actually, I do have some songs that you can use as a theme song. I just had to cut those songs that I was going to send into theme song time or format." And once again, they made me wait, but I guess they were still shooting and preparing everything. And they picked one
Mm.
theme song. So I assumed maybe they don't like what I sent them for film score or TV score, but they like the theme song. At least that's something. Um, so
Yeah.
was so what I'm trying to tell you is how I actually developed my approach to music through this first job.
Mm.
Me making
Yeah.
the music ahead of time, and then when I actually got the episodes to score, I had to figure out what I
Mm.
should use on FL Studio. At first, I didn't have a video player. I had to um, convert the whole episode into MP3 and score it from there. Every cue I had
Yeah.
to
Okay.
use an recorder. But now it's developed to a point where I watch the whole episode in the raw, with no music, with
Mm.
nothing, and just get a sense of the story. Once you get the sense
Yeah.
of the story, you watch it again and make notes and say, okay, maybe I can play this song here. Maybe I can try play this song here. Maybe I can do the song here. Maybe I can do the song here. It might not be the
Mm.
whole score that you need to do, but at least you are getting somewhere. And also, what I also try
Yeah.
to do is I start with the scenes that are the very easier to do, the easiest scenes to do. If
Mm.
the previously on
Yeah.
song is the easiest to do, start with that. If the end credit song is easier to do, start with that. And then once you have something in your DAW, you start getting momentum. Now maybe you might attack that meaty scene that the director gave you a brief on. Then attack, that's when you start um finding cues that you can do. Sometimes it's very daunting when you get a project in the role. You're like, oh my word, what did I get myself into? Why did I tell people that I'm a film and TV composer now? But you know, once you start with the scenes that are very easy, it starts giving you momentum to a point where you might make a whole wall-to-wall music where you have to now start deleting stuff and let the dialogue breathe. But it's always like that. Every episode is like,
Mm.
what did I get
Yeah.
myself into? Maybe I should just tell these people that I'm not the person who had your emotions go up and down. And once you have a whole episode that you've scored, you start celebrating. Yes, I'm the man. This is, start beating your chest. It's all of these up and down things. But the approach is always to understand the story. Ask if you need to,
Yeah.
with the directors and executive producer and whoever, and also start figuring out a music DNA for if it's a movie or if it's a series. Just figure out what type of songs are you gonna use. Don't just start putting any sort of music um, in the show. Just figure out I'm going to use this. I'm going to use a bit of hip hop, bit of piano, a bit of melancholy, bit of quirky, bit of Afrobeat, bit of this, bit of that, and this is our DNA for the show. Let's not, go outside that nucleus. So it's always very important to me that once I finish an episode, that there's a common thread with all these cues. You get it. It must sound that is coming from one person. it must somehow form a style.
Yes.
Maybe if somebody's been following my work, one day will say, ah, I know that's Modia right there. I know, I can tell that's Modia right there.
Yeah.
I could do that, with the
Yeah.
Neptunes, with Pharrell and Chad Hugo. I could figure out, wow, that's Pharrell. And sometimes I would be
Yeah.
right. So I want also that, even though I haven't figured
Yeah.
my own style, I like to be all over the genres. I like fusion. I like this and that. But maybe somebody who pays, or somebody who pays attention to my music or scores might figure out a pattern that I always do.
Yeah, it's not your job to figure out your pattern. It's other people's job to figure out your pattern, I think. So in terms of now advice, not for musicians actually, but for like directors or creatives when they're briefing musicians, what advice would you give them to be able to brief their musicians well? Because I know we've all had this moment, when you get briefed and the brief is make it awesome, and you're like, uh,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Or the notes that you
The
get
awesome,
not working.
awesome could mean anything.
Yeah, sometimes you get notes not
Yeah, yeah,
working.
yeah.
Okay, what
So,
about it is it not working? Yeah.
yeah,
So I think
right, right. So,
it's
so
it's
what? So,
yeah, for the directors and producers, right? What advice would I give them when they have to work with musicians? That's the question, right? Yeah, so I would go back to what I said. That initial conversation, trying to work out a relationship between you guys. Have a conversation, maybe just trying to find out, common stuff. That's little small talk before you get down to business. That's always important, the
mm,
conversation.
yeah,
If you
okay,
if you maybe you are being specific, you are targeting a specific musician, like I think I can work with him. Yeah, maybe study some of his works and say, I like what you did there. Maybe you can incorporate
mm,
it here. Also, I
mm,
think from a budget perspective, I know this is politics, maybe it's none of my business, but also just be someone who values music and people that do music. Some of these budgets, what I hear is that they they spend money on everything else, and whatever's left, that's the music budget. And at that time they don't know the running costs of
yeah,
what it actually takes to do this, and the composer
yeah,
has to now figure out a way, because they want a job or they want to get to figure out a way with the budget that they've been given. So be somebody who really really values music, and values the musician. Another thing that I can say is that make sure the show has a musical DNA. Just figure out the type of music that you
mm,
want for
yes,
for your show that's gonna align with your vision. And if you can, have references for these composers, because sometimes you describe a song, I
mm,
want a fun song that's awesome. Okay, but where have you heard this fun and awesome song? Which artist can you tag and say something like this, something like that, give the composer as much detail into the story, into um, the vision that you're trying to tell, the correlation with the characters, the location, all these details. I use all these details that they give me as a reference. If they say a man is from KZN, he's in his 60s, um, he lost his job, he's divorced with two kids, and he's angry, and sometimes he might not be an angry man. Maybe he's just a funny guy, but this is all these bad things that have happened to. Maybe that's the comic relief. Sometimes you might put a quirky um, character theme to him, but sometimes it might be somebody who's tired of getting beaten by life, and you might have to have this ominous or villainous sound to him. So
mm,
really make the composer understand the story and the vision that you're trying to tell and the sound that you're trying to make as much detail as possible. You find somebody who's going to break their back for your vision, and in the end you might be blown away. The you look at the relationship between Steven Spielberg and John Williams. They like two peas in a pod. They visit each
yeah,
other's picnics
mm,
and brides and birthdays and whatever.
yeah,
They call each other 2 in the morning for
yeah,
ideas. Another example is Ryan Coogler and Ludwig Göransson, the guys that did the Black Panther movie. They were
Yes.
roommates at some point. They were actual roommates at some point, so
Ah,
they
okay.
know each other in depth, you know. So if it's for somebody that you don't know, a Mudia that you just met 5 minutes ago, yes, let's have that conversation. Let's have that conversation
Mm.
as detailed as it can be, and then we'll get to lay the music for your vision.
Yeah, yeah. I always think it's kind of like music plays. It's almost like that emotional cue
Mm,
for me. That it's like you're either you want the music to like enhance the emotion. So I always think it's like useful for a director to say, what emotion are we feeling now? Are we feeling are we feeling excited? Are we feeling
yeah.
energized? Are we feeling scared? Are we feeling
Mm.
so like for me I always think the emotions is but I also struggle with that. My wife will tell you like I'm a very like deadpan kind of person. So so she's always like, I wish you would show your emotions more. And I'm like,
More livelier, yeah.
that's just who I am. Yeah. Anyway, okay. Um, so I think let's just do like one line. I think there's actually much more things that I want to ask you, but we'll have to maybe save that for another time. I think we can maybe continue this discussion
Okay,
in a
yeah,
couple of months or something.
yeah.
But uh, just like one last question is uh, so what score to this date are you the most proud of, and which score gave you the most headache? Or and are they the same? Are they the same score?
The ones that I did. Um,
Yeah, of the ones that you've done. Yeah. Oh, you don't have to answer that if you like.
I'm going to answer it. They'll feel
You don't.
whatever they feel. I'm
All
going
right.
to answer it. So,
All right.
Law, Love, and Betrayal, the first season that I did last year, 2024. That was the most fun I've had in a project. I've had fun with other projects, but this one was the most fun because yes, it's a typical law show, but also there were also other aspects to the story. There was the comic relief. I don't know if he's a secretary or whatever, and I could, use funky sounds and hip hop breaks. I could really go into a lot of musical spheres that I haven't gone into as far as my scoring. Doing music for telenovelas is melancholy, drama, and somebody dying, and happy. You don't get the comic relief coming home, coming to work with a hangover, and that quirky scene. Um, so I got to explore like the really funky music that I always wanted to try on a screen, and and there was all aspects of story in Law, Love, and Betrayal. For me, that was the most fun
Mm,
project that I did, and they liked. I mean, they knew what they wanted. Number one. And when I sent it to them when I was
mm,
pitching, they said, yes, this is it. And when somebody says this is it, now I have a formula. If you give me a formula, I can make 100 more from that formula that you approved. It also allows me to explore and also make, more fusion and stuff that you might, and you say, yes, I also like that too. So there was me submitting, and there was feedback saying, yes, this is the sound that we like, and for me, so far, that was the most fun. Um, I think the project that I had, maybe not a headache, but it was also a learning curve for me. When I did Kilboro, it was with Mr. Steve Gugas, who is like, uh, I think he trained in the UK. So he was doing like 12 movies, and then every movie is going to have a up and coming director, and up and coming makeup artist, up and coming composer. So he was really giving people a platform and also teaching them practically at the same time. And I got recommended to him, and so we started working. So with every, it was a 2.5 hour movie, by the way. So he said, score the first 30 minutes and I'll send you notes. And
wow.
yeah, with every 30 minutes, there would be like 30 lines of notes, and I have to fix that before we move on to second 30 minutes. So it was very long, but he was teaching me that no, this is not working with you. This is not working. I like that, I like that, I like that, but this is not working. So sometimes what I learned, one of the mistakes that I was doing is that in a scene, I would capture the first emotion, right? But then loop it throughout the whole scene. So I just capture the whole emotion and would just urban flow with all these other scenes of the story. And I'm not capturing what the story is saying here or here or here. And he said, you have to start with the second emotion. And when that changes, change your music. And when that changes, take it up if it's going up, and then land that plane. So he taught me that. I wouldn't say headache, but it was he taught me endurance. He really taught me endurance and say you are going to finish this.
Mm.
You are going to learn because I believe he
Yeah.
said I believe you have a gift. I really like what you're doing, but you're missing it here. You're missing it here and here. And if you just perfect this and that, you know you could go far. He even recommended there's a documentary about John Williams. He sent me the link to the Disney Plus documentary. He said, go watch this. So he was teaching, but it was long. It took, I think I did that movie over, I think it was November, during the December holidays up until, no, it was December, January. We ended up finishing in end of Feb. So 3 months to score that thing with nose going back and no nose going back and forth. So that was really hard for me. There was a lot of sleepless nights where my body was even tired. I could not, yeah. I was sleeping on my workstation,
Yeah.
had to wake up 3 in the morning and finish this. And he was really serious. He would call you, are you at your workstation? I want you to finish this. He's like, you're not gonna get off that easily. I'm not going to fire you. I'm not going to do you are going to finish this. So he actually told me that. And then with some of these other shows, the only thing that I didn't, some of these other shows, they did not have a music DNA. Some
Mm.
of these other shows, they did not have a music DNA. So I had to create one for them. And still they did not like. So the some of these shows, they had to figure out their music DNA with what I gave them. And number two, they had to figure out who do I report to regarding sending music, who's gonna send me notes. It can be five people having notes on music because some of their notes actually contradict each other. So who do I listen to? So I had to also be firm as a service provider. Um, is our network still cool?
Yeah, you just cut out for a little bit, but it seems to
Yeah,
be back now.
I think I'm back now. So I had to
Yeah.
also be firm as a service provider to say that I can only respond to one person. These people are contradicting themselves, and I keep on going back to scoring the same episode over and over. I need you guys to tell me what to do. So at some points I had to be firm, even though I'm a service provider, even though I'm just a guy that's looking for a job and is willing to do whatever music you want for your vision. I have to be firm with how I work. So
Mm.
I've also found that to be a headache because if you don't speak, they will continue doing it. And that will give you a headache and that will clutter your brain because you're frustrated and not, block out your
Mm.
creativity. So some points you do have to be firm with how you work.
Yeah, and I think when you're assertive like that, and you kind of push back a little bit, it means that they end up respecting you more as well.
Yes, yes. You just have to pick the times that you do it in. You can't just do it every day, otherwise
Um,
you're gonna be the guy
so it
that's always
seems like the
busy.
network. Okay, yeah, it seems like the network is kind of up and down at the moment, but I think I'm gonna have to cut a whole lot out. I'm gonna press stop now. I'm just gonna say thank you very much, Modia. This has been like really, really informative and a great conversation and a great way for me to. I'm also sort of on the learning curve of podcasts.
Mhm.
So thank you very much, and hopefully we can pick up this discussion at a later point when you've done a few more films and a few more series. Um, yeah, so thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hugh Davidson, for having me.